Hi, everyone. Good afternoon from the rainy Chicagoland area. Like Stephanie introduced me, my name is Maggie Miskowicz, and I'm the Instructional Technology Coordinator here at Saint Viator High School, which is in Arlington Heights, and that is a northwest suburb of Chicago. So we're pretty close to the city. So a little bit about our school and kind of what we do here. There we go. So Saint Viator High School is a private Catholic high school. It's located in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. The school was founded in 1961 by the Clerics of Saint Viator as originally an all-boys school. Eventually in 1987, it actually merged with a local all-girls Catholic school, Sacred Heart, to become co-ed. Currently, we are a co-ed school with about 950 students and 110 faculty and staff. Out of the 110 that we have, employees that we have in the building, 60 are full-time teachers, and out of those 60, 49 have been trained to use ExamSoft software. So about us in our one-to-one initiative, we are a one-to-one iPad environment. Teachers got their iPads first. So what do I mean by that? We went all school in 2013, but our teachers actually got them a full year in advance in 2012, and they got them prior to the summer. So basically our principal just kind of instructed them to play with them, you know, and actually asked their children to show up and show them how to use it. So, you know, our faculty played with it, and then we had our admin team that was so supportive of our tech initiative that they brought in several companies to do professional developments to show them how to use and integrate the iPad in the classroom. Then our principal actually realized that, you know, just a couple PDs throughout the year wouldn't be enough. So she realized the need for a full-time person that would be in the building strictly for faculty, and that's kind of where I came in. She had created this instructional technology position, and I was hired when the school went one-to-one, so that was 2013-14. And originally it was just 9th, 10th, and 11th graders that had iPads. Our seniors were not required to get them, just because, you know, the cost of the iPad and everything associated with it, you know, for 1 year we didn't really think it would be very cost effective. So in that first year it was kind of, you know, trial and error. Our teachers were getting the hang of, you know, using the iPad in the classroom and having them used by their students at all times. And in that year, we had me, you know, in the building 24/7, or not 24/7, sorry, 5 days a week, full-time. And they actually built into the schedule professional development time, which was every Tuesday for an hour and a half. So students left at 2, teachers were here until 3:30. And admin really saw the value, and they knew that we needed that professional development time. So, you know, if you look at the screen, it says, the only thing that is preventing me from going paperless is not having a secure testing solution for the iPad. And this was actually said by one of our social studies teachers, actually our department chair, when she met with the principal. And, you know, this was halfway through the first year of going one-to-one. And so, you know, our principal kind of challenged her and said, you know, start doing some research, see if there's a product out there. So she approached me and she said, hey, you know, let's look for something. So we started our search, and she actually was the first one to find out about ExamSoft just through a general internet search. And she brought it to my attention, you know, so we kind of looked more into it and just basically said, you know, this has got to be secure, it's got to be awesome if it's used by states to administer the bar exam, LSATs, MCATs. And then in addition to, at that time, several colleges and universities around the country. And I know our teacher was very concerned with security and, you know, are the kids going to be cheating? Are they able to leave the app, take screenshots? You know, how secure is secure? So that was one of our main concerns to begin with. So We contacted the company, and this was back in the fall of 2013. So again, in our first year of one-to-one. And ExamSoft, they were kind of just delving into the K through 12 market, and I don't think they were really ready for it. So when we had inquired about it, for us, the initial price was too high to even consider it at that time. So we went out, looked for other things. We did try out, a few other solutions, but none of them really was what we were looking for, and we kept going back to ExamSoft to see if anything would meet our needs. And so at that time, we had kind of tabled the idea because we didn't find anything, and we didn't really have money in our budget at that time to really move forward. Then last year, ExamSoft actually reached out to us, so that was the fall of 2014, and they're really willing to work with us with our budget, and we were extremely happy with that. So at that point, our director of technology, Miss Peggy Gosh, and I kind of decided to investigate ExamSoft a little bit more after they had reached out again, and we scheduled a conference call with them. This included a discussion about the company, what they're about, their software, and actually they showed us a demo. And ExamSoft, as a company, they're just fantastic to work with. They asked us really, one, what we were looking for to get out of their product, which to me, yeah, they can sell us something, but at the same time, they were trying to make it fit to our needs. Will we be the right fit for them as well? And so basically, we needed something secure at that point to give assessments for students on their iPads. So, during our conference call, we had a demo that took us to the portal, and we saw the ExamSoft portal, kind of the teacher's view, so how a teacher would set up their questions, their assessment, and then they took us through a demonstration of the SoftTest M app, which that's what students work with, and that's the only thing students see with the product that we have. And the steps that they had, and really they took us through the steps that the students then had to take in order to take a secure exam. So Peggy and myself, then got into the conversation with ExamSoft and really asked how other schools introduced it to their faculty and staff. We knew that they hadn't really worked with the K through 12 market just yet, but it was interesting to hear some of their ideas, of the rollouts, and they were kind of all over the board. Some places did it with their entire faculty all at once, just kind of threw it at them and said, let's do it. Others just introduced it to maybe a class or two, just the Spanish or just the biology. And when we really thought about it, we knew that neither of those really fit kind of what we do here at Saint Viator. So we decided to really talk to our principal and our department chairs, kind of see what they had thought. And we had bounced off the ideas that ExamSoft kind of threw our way as well during our call. And so we kind of came up with, let's ask for volunteers to pilot and see where that takes us. So we had a pretty good response. We had a lot of teachers that wanted to do it, but it was kind of lopsided in the sense of many of our science and English teachers were all over the product, and our social studies, which was awesome. We loved the enthusiasm, but when we really thought about it, it alienated other departments, and we really wanted to reach out to all departments. So our principal then had suggested, well, let's do one per department, and then have 2 from English and 2 from science. So in our initial pilot, we would have 11 total teachers from all departments. So once we got our department chairs kind of on board, explain things that we were going to do with the software, we got our volunteers. The ultimate decision for us was fairly easy because we're a small private Catholic school. Really, it was just our principal, which is Mrs. Eileen Mano, our director of technology, Mrs. Peggy Gosh, and myself just decided, okay, let's go, let's try it out. Peggy, our director of technology, did have some reserves in our tech budget, so we were able to take some of that money to pilot the program, and really, I mean, went off purchasing without a big hitch at all. So once, you know, we were on board with ExamSoft, you know, from day one, even the initial conference call, they're there every step of the way. You know, they reach out via phone calls, emails, video conferencing if you need them to. But really, I mean, they're a wonderful resource. And really, we were first blessed with a coach. And that coach would check in on us, you know, every other day, weekly, or even more if we needed guidance. And, you know, answering emails, they're so quick. So if you ever have questions, I mean, that's the go-to. So for our pilot, Peggy and I actually had access to our portal, so our ExamSoft portal, a lot sooner than our teachers. Because on the IT end, there is some setup that's involved, you know, such as like importing students, importing teachers, importing classes, and you don't have to do it one by one. It's all done in bulk with spreadsheets, and then you convert those into text files. But the process is fairly simple, like once you get the hang of it, and the templates are great. But again, like if something goes wrong, like we had a lot of things go wrong when we were trying to import, but right away, I mean, you know, our coach was on the phone and kind of walked us through. They would look at it, you know, and a lot of times it was something as simple like the date was wrong, and it wouldn't show up, or I forgot, or I created an extra column. I mean, simple little quick fixes that when you have a lot of set eyes on, you quickly can get to a solution. So, like I mentioned before, we had some teachers volunteer, and then one from every department, 2 from English, 2 from science. The only other subject that we did not include in our pilot was math. And, you know, a lot of math teachers out there are like, oh, well, I can use this software, and absolutely. Math can definitely use this software. What we found is in a high school setting, you know, our teachers love to see the student work, their thought process. And right now in ExamSoft, there is not a feature for like a scratch pad. So we as a school opted for math teachers not to use it. But the program itself has equation features. I mean, I know our science teachers use equation features all the time with chemistry. You know, creating multiple choice. I mean, you can definitely do all those things. It's just, you know, our option not to include our math at this point. So anyway, so many of our piloteers were actually our department chairs, because those guys thought ahead and said, you know, if we end up going with this product after our pilot, we really want to be the leaders in our department, you know, to show the rest of our department teachers the program, you know, when it comes time to roll it out to everybody. So, and this all happened prior to the the second semester of last year. So we're looking at January 2015, and our pilot was starting at the end of January, so when our second semester actually started. So the very first, let me go back. So prior to our first professional development, and this is I'm talking about with our pilot group, that I had discussed with our ExamSoft coach, and you know, they really pushed ahead and said, hey, let's do a video conference, let's do a Google Hangout. I was all over that. I thought it was a great idea. And so did our teachers, because, you know, I had played around with the product, but I was nowhere near an expert into all the features. So we scheduled a Google Hangout, and then I had our 11 pilot teachers in one of our computer labs here at school. And during that video conference, basically kind of took the teachers through the portal for about an hour and a half, and just kind of talked about all the features, had the teachers practicing, creating questions, creating assessments, and it was awesome, because it was definitely more than I could have done at that point in time. And ExamSoft then offered their services again. At any point in time when we needed them, they were there. But since I'm full-time in the building, they were kind of my go-to, and then the teachers came to me if they had questions. So I was kind of the go-between. Excuse me. Many of our pilot teachers then, after this video conference, we have a long weekend before the second semester starts, and they started adding more questions into ExamSoft portal. And then a lot of them took some time to actually create their first assessment. And we always told our teachers, and we still tell them, like, if it's your first time doing it, don't make it count. Just do a practice exam. So for teachers, really the most work with this program is done at the beginning. And that's where I got the most resistance from teachers, especially even in our pilot. People that volunteered to do this, I still had resistance from them because, it takes a lot of time to create questions, and it takes a lot of time to, do the assessments. Well, my kids don't know how to get into the exam. So, you hear a lot of these different excuses. And it does take time. I wasn't lying to them. I said it will take a lot of time. You have to set aside the time if you want to, if you want to save some time later on, because this will definitely save time. They were resistant to that change as much as I love them. But you know what? Since then, they've been working their tails off, and they've done a lot. And now they are seeing those benefits, that it is making it easier for them to create things. So, like I said, for most teachers, the work is definitely at the beginning. And during our second semester of this pilot group, all the professional developments, aside from the first one and the second one, that were done by our ExamSoft coach via Google Hangout. Everything else was done by me. We did follow-up PDs with just that core group. And a lot of times all it was is, teachers were asking for time to just have the lab, to sit in there, create questions while I'm in there, to just, hey, if they get hung up somewhere, they can ask me right away, instead of, coming from their classroom, coming to my office, me running up to their classroom during the day. A lot of them just needed that prep time, which I highly encourage. So, like I said, some of our teachers dove right into it. Others in the pilot group hesitated. And, some of it was due to, the extra work. Others just needed more time with the system, really understanding the system, seeing the system for the first time. They're not the most tech savvy, but the more practice, as with anything, the better they got. And some, for some odd reason, thought that, they were afraid to put all of their questions into one portal because they were afraid to lose all their backup, which seems kind of odd to me because they had the questions elsewhere. But it was one of the things that we saw among the resistance. So then, we had our follow-up video conference, and, ExamSoft was more than willing to keep video conferencing the more we needed during our pilot. And they're just such a great resource. Their portal has an awesome library. They have interactive tutorials, handouts that kind of take you through step by step, as well as the community, which gets, like, you post a question and then you have answers that either get answered by someone at ExamSoft or others that are part of that community. And that's been a great resource. I also took some time to create some Saint Viator resources here that I guess we can use for our students in our particular situation. And one of the things I'll show you here, these are just a few slides from a presentation that we did last year. So out of our pilot group, out of our 11 teachers, that brought our total of classes using this about 55. And out of those 55 classes, we reached out to about 700 kids. So as you can see, a majority of our students. And there was a learning curve with our students. A lot of them didn't have particular things turned on in their settings. They had to learn how to log into the system, how to download the exams. And so I created kind of like a little basic PowerPoint because I had been going into classrooms for teachers just to kind of make them comfortable to do this, but then also, get the kids kind of working with the program as well. And so one of the first things I always told the students to do is, when they log in for the first time ever, they have to set up guided access. And so we would go through that process. Every class I went into, I would say, okay, guys, go into your settings. Make sure you go into accessibility, find guided access, and make sure that's green. And we got to a point, I think, 3-4 teachers later, that a lot of the kids had seen my spiel already, and so they knew that this was already turned on, so they didn't go through these steps. But it was important for them to hear it because then what those kids did is they helped others in their classes, which was really neat to see. The next thing was making sure all the kids were able to log in. And so how I had set it up on our end is their username is just their school ID. And then their passwords were, random jumbled up passwords that from the portal you can email it to them. So that's exactly what I did. And so when they were logging in, I said use your Saint Viator email or your Saint Viator ID, and then your password is going to be the one that I had emailed you, earlier, say a day early, a week early. And many students, yeah, I got that email, logged right in. Once the kids are logged in, this is where the trial came, where the kids, really had to learn the process of taking a secure exam in the portal. And so as you can see from this screenshot, this is what the app looks like on their iPad. And anytime they have a exam to download, it's in step 1. So, I had to take them to the process. You have to download that exam. Then every single time they're taking a secure exam, they have to put themselves in airplane mode because they turn off Wi-Fi, they turn off Bluetooth. If the kids need access to their Bluetooth keyboards, Bluetooth is able to be turned back on when you turn airplane mode on. You just have to hit the Bluetooth icon. Then once they do that, they have to triple click to turn on guided access. And then they press start, and then they can officially put their password in for the exam, and then press start to actually take the exam. So once they're in the exam, they go through all their questions, they can strike out answers, they can flag questions, they can look at attachments, and again, all of this was part of that learning curve. So, anytime the kids were taking a practice exam, me as well as any teacher that I was in their classroom, we would discuss all these cool features that the kids can use while they're taking an exam. And so, once they took the exam, they have to save and exit, go through a couple screens, and then the most important thing that we've found is that they have to see this green screen in order for their exam to upload to the ExamSoft portal. And for the most part, kids, it did take them a few tries. If you look at the screen, it is a multi-step process. It's not like you just turn on one thing and poof, it's done. But I promise you, as much of a headache it was at the beginning, my slides really helped, and then really just having the students, go through that and just repeating all these steps every single time. I mean, this year, with the transition of our sophomores, juniors, and seniors that have seen this before, I mean, they're rock stars at it. They're, you know, it's automatic at this point in time. So at the beginning, you know, it's a lot of work. You know, I'd be in a class for 25, maybe 30 minutes taking them through these features, making sure every kid understood the entire process of taking an exam. So, you know, some of the things that we saw. Parents and students, before we even started our pilot, we didn't really tell the kids, we didn't tell the parents ahead of time about this because it was a pilot. You know, we were just testing it out. You know, we had teachers, our pilot teachers introduce it in class, and you know, some of the students were scared. You know, they'd go home, they'd tell their parents, you know, oh, they're making us use this, I really don't like it. So we had a few parents that had phoned in, emailed, and basically, you know, our response to them was that we're just testing this out. We want to see how it works. You know, we haven't committed to it, but we want to see, you know, how all this testing on iPads works, or really using technology works. You know, we explained to them that since more and more higher ed testing is done securely online, why not expose them to this, you know, sooner rather than later? Really prepare them for college, really prepare them with that skill set of taking an assessment online. So what we found interesting with our students, you know, at first they were really hesitant, and it was more so our juniors and seniors that were, I mean, just, they really didn't like it. A lot of them had gone to their counselors to demand paper tests. You know, they fought it. They really fought it. Whereas our freshmen and our sophomores were almost completely the opposite. We saw some resistance with them, but for the most part, you know, our underclassmen really did not think twice. You know, they were willing to try it out and really did not hesitate. What we found at the end of the pilot was that eventually those upperclassmen that were kicking and screaming, taking the exams on the iPad, they actually were the ones that were craving them at the end, because we had, like, a prime example is our AP Euro students, which were all seniors, and they were the ones that were really resistant, but by the end they loved it. They saw that on the iPad they can see attachments much clearer. So, you know, in AP European history, a lot of maps, timelines, portraits, photos. You know, when you're looking at it on a paper copy of a test, you know, you can only see what's copied. You know, as here they have it in color, you can zoom in on it. You know, for essays, they said typing was so much faster than writing out an essay on paper. A lot of our teachers actually noticed that students took exams faster using ExamSoft than actually taking it on paper, but they didn't think that scores really suffered. They still saw the same trends. But even when, you know, they can see that maybe a student was struggling, the portal is amazing, and you can see, you know, how much a student spends on a question, how much time they spend on a question, how they navigate through the exam. Like, do they take it all in one, you know, hurrah from 1 to 20 and then never look back and just exit, or do they take 1 through 20 and then go back to maybe question 1, question 2? You know, you can see all of that on the teacher end. You know, and then another good example was our religion teacher. She had freshmen and sophomores, and those were kids that kind of, you know, just dove right into it because she was so enthusiastic about using the program. And she actually gave her final last year for her class on the iPad. The kids had to type out 4 essays during the final period. And the kids loved it because they typed. It was a lot faster. But then on the teacher end, at that point, she said the ease of grading was fantastic. It was blind grading, essentially, because she only saw the student ID numbers. And she didn't have to decipher their handwriting, so it made it easier for her to grade as well. Then some teachers, so, you know, we took a survey after our pilot ended, finals were over. We took a little survey of our pilot group, so those 11 teachers. And we had asked, like, okay, so do you like it? What don't you like about it? And the biggest concern was that it was a lot of work at the beginning, so what I had already mentioned. But they knew that eventually it would pay off, and they know that, come second semester this year, they won't have to do a lot of work. They just have to set up their assessments at that point. Others in the survey had voiced concerns about the parent and student resistance. And then, we just kind of said, this is the way testing is headed. So why not help our students with that skill set? Some of the positives, our teachers love the immediate feedback for the students as well as for them. The item analysis feature. And also they like to see how that student navigates through the exam. So if there's ever a question of why that student is struggling, the teacher and the student can look and see, what was hard about this question that you spent 2 minutes on. Other benefits that we saw right after just our pilot group, saving money on copying, paper, Scantrons, staples. I mean, all of these things you don't really think about, but it adds up. And, we have to pay for a subscription, but then we're not worrying about making copies of tests and, reviews, getting those Scantrons. We have it set up so, in our system, some schools out there, probably like, oh, how is this going to fit into our budget? You can make it work. We made it work. Basically, what we did is, in our system, we have it set up. Here at Saint Viator, we're 98% digital with our textbooks. So the only thing that we don't have digital are things that are not available digitally, like Catcher in the Rye, or I'm trying to think, there's another novel. But that's it. And so what we did is we actually included an ExamSoft fee along with their digital book fees. And so our budget really isn't taking a hit because that is being turned back on the students. So when we looked at all of these things, we thought, okay, our benefits are definitely, outweighing the negatives. And ultimately, our principal, it was her decision, and she said, let's do it. Let's do it. So we haven't really turned back. The last professional development of the school year last year, so the 2014-15 school year, I had gone into the portal. I had created user accounts for all of our teachers at that point. How to sign in, how to create questions, and all they were asked to do over the summer was just to create questions, and that's it. We didn't want to overwhelm them, but it gave them something to work on. And if they have questions in the portal, then when the new school year rolled around, they had something to start with. So 2015-16 school year came around. We had 3 days of in-service, and one of those days was spent rotating in groups. So when the groups weren't with me, so we basically broke up our faculty into about groups of 15 and 20, and every group would come see me at some point, and they were an hour-long session. And in that session, so they've already learned how to create questions. So in the next session here, prior to the start of the school year, I taught them how to create assessments. And then, remember, every Tuesday here at Saint Viator is a professional development day. So far, we've had 4 sessions dedicated to it, aside from the in-service day. So on the Tuesdays, I have only divided them into 2 groups, and both groups have had 2 sessions each. Obviously, we did another creating assessments one, and then analyzing and reviewing results was the other session. Our original pilot group, so remember the group of 10, those guys are now kind of their ambassadors to their departments. They're the go-tos for the rest of the faculty. And obviously, I'm definitely available for all teachers as well, but sometimes it's just easier for them to go to their department personnel. And really, I'm available for teachers to ease them into introducing ExamSoft into the class. Obviously, our teachers can't do that because they're teaching, so that's where I step in. but many of our kids, like I said, we had about 700 kids that were in those pilot classes. So it's much easier from the classroom perspective to introduce it to the students. It's really more so now getting the teachers comfortable as opposed to that, that long process of getting the students onto ExamSoft for the first time. But again, it's an ongoing learning process. I like to think of it as introducing it like a learning management system. You've got to have an admin team that's committed to it. They see the benefits, and they're going to see that it's used. Our principal told our faculty, learn it this year. Spend some time getting your feet wet, get used to the program, and let's see what next year holds. If really, will it be expected on an all-school level? So, like I had mentioned, it's a lot easier for kids to sign on. It's pretty automatic. So our social studies teacher created one of these templates. She uses this in class kind of as a cheat sheet. So the kids still see the steps, but they don't have to see the entire slide presentation with the screenshots. So it's just shorthanded instructions, and all she does is just changes the password for every exam. So for us, I know it's only the end of October, so we've had 2.5 months into full implementation with all our faculty, but I believe it's really good because of our pilot group. Those guys were so excited. They got the hang of using the portal, administering the exams. They saw the benefits, and they're our ambassadors for this program. And since that group believes in the product, they're happy, they're excited, and others see that too, and they want to get there. It just takes time. So looking ahead, we hope to continue our strong relationship with ExamSoft. They have a product that we are really excited about. We believe in it. And it better helps better prepare our students for what they will encounter in the future. So that's all I have for you guys today. But I will take questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Maggie. That was a wonderful presentation. We are going to go ahead and open up the floor for questions now. If you have a question, now would be an excellent time to type it through the questions area of the GoToWebinar control panel, which should be on the right-hand side of your screen. If you'll type it in, I'll go ahead and read it out and give Maggie an opportunity to respond. And we already have some in queue, Maggie, so I'm going to jump right in, okay?
Go for it.
Perfect. First question is, do you have any issues with students typing essays? Do students have difficulties with the typing?
So at our school, we give our students the option to buy Bluetooth keyboards to go along with their iPads. So those that have keyboards, they just turn on the Bluetooth for their exam, and that's totally fine. For others that are doing the on-screen typing, a lot of them, what I've seen is they split the keyboard on the iPad, so it's almost like they're texting because they only use their thumbs to type, so I've seen that. I also see like the on-screen typing, and when they get to high school, as freshmen, like you can see that it takes them a while. This is year 3 of our one-to-one initiative, and at this point, you would never know that they've never had iPads, before this, or very little exposure to iPads, because it does get quicker.
Great, thank you. Next question is, were you able to create mock or practice exams to ease the students in, or was their first experience an actual exam?
Yeah, so, from ExamSoft, they actually even advise us to do mock exams, mock quizzes, and that's, we were definitely on board with that, and that's kind of what we told our pilot teachers and then really our entire faculty, is to always do a practice one. I had created a real quick 5-question mock quiz that I shared with our faculty, and some of them used that, some of them created little practice exam, with subject-specific questions. But every teacher that I've seen, they never count the first one. They always tell their kids, guys, it's just practice. I want you to get used to the program. I want you to ask questions. This is the time. And then they'll do that practice, and the teachers obviously kind of walk their kids through that. And then, the next one may not be a test, but maybe it's an actual quiz that they count towards their grade. So the first one, here at Saint Viator has never been counted, not that I'm aware of anyway, for our teachers.
Great. Next question is, does this same process work on laptops or other devices, or only iPads?
You know what? I'm not too familiar because the only product that we use from ExamSoft is their SoftTest M app. So I'm not really sure how it actually works on laptops or desktops.
Sure. I can answer that question if it's okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, so ExamSoft works on both Macs, PCs, laptops, desktops, computer labs. It also works on iPads and Surface Pro devices as well. Great. Next question is: Can you upload questions? Can you upload questions and assessments, or must you always create them within the program?
No, you can. You have to give your users importing permissions, but you can definitely import questions into the system. Our teachers do that all the time as well. So that's definitely a feature that you don't have to sit there and retype everything. But there are some limitations to that. Because we have, some testing software that makes up questions for different textbooks, and from there it's a little bit difficult. So I've seen that our teachers retype those. But if they're questions that are just in Word documents, things like that, it's fairly easy to import.
Great. Next question is, what are your plans to use ExamSoft with the ACT Aspire test?
We actually are not there yet. What we're doing this year, our school has decided not to do the Aspire. We're doing something else, and I'm not involved in our state testing here at school. That's mostly our counselors' area. But that's kind of one of the reasons that we were looking for a secure testing solution to use on our iPads, because we know that's coming. We haven't dealt with it just yet, but we know that that time will come.
Great. Next question is, you mentioned a lot of upfront work. Do you feel that you and teachers both feel that all of this work is worth it?
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking actually to my social studies teacher that was the one, that wanted a program, and she won't look back. She said it's a lot of work to begin with, but, the benefits definitely are awesome. She says that now, creating a quick assessment, it takes her 5 minutes as opposed to, trying to print off copies. Go get Scantrons, and then grading those Scantrons. I mean, not only are you saving time in the long run, creating assessments, but you're also saving time in the process of, running those copies, grading the tests, things like that as well.
Great. Next question is, can you create an exam bank of questions and pick and choose different questions to assign to different tests for different sections of the same class?
Exam bank of questions. I know we have teachers that will take and create categories. They'll create groups of questions. And I'm not sure in particular if you can take and assign them to different groups in class, though. Stephanie, do you have any idea?
So I don't have clarification from the question poser, but I will just say that yes, so all of your questions are in a bank. So even if you have one class and then 3 groups within the class, you can create 3 separate assessments that all have different questions. Or if your question is can 40% of the exam for the whole class be the same questions, and then 60% of the rest of the exams be different questions depending on what group they're in, I believe the answer to that question is yes. However, the person who posed that, I will get with you on with one of our support folks and clarify that. The next question is actually 3 questions in one. I'm going to kind of combine them, but one of our listeners is wondering, can you use images? Can you record audio for an assessment question? And can you add a listening comprehension assessment?
What was the first question? What program?
With an ExamSoft, can you add in images? Can you record an audio for an assessment question? And can you add listening comprehension?
Yeah, so what you do in ExamSoft is you add attachments. So like images, you can add a JPEG, you can add PDFs. And audio definitely works, like our foreign language department actually adds for listening comprehension. So all of that is actually possible within the system when you're creating questions. You can add attachments at the question level, or you can actually add those attachments at an assessment level if it's an attachment that's going to be used for all the questions. So I know, like, if it's a reading passage, like some of our English teachers like using it or attaching it at the assessment level, just because then the kids can see that attachment for every single question.
Great. Thank you so much, Maggie. Those are really great questions, folks. Thank you so much for attending and interacting with us. We really appreciate you being here today. We know it's a very busy time of year. Everybody's getting ready for the end of the semester. Just a quick couple of items to note. Maggie's contact information is on the screen right now, so if you have questions for her personally, that's how you reach her. If you have questions for ExamSoft, we can be reached